The sunshine is bright and the air is crisp. Fresh dew lies lazily on the ground, waiting for the first sign of life. Little feet pound the ground and the blades of grass stand to attention, ready for the onslaught of little boys wielding sticks. This was a typical morning for Nelson Mandela, a boy who grew up in Kunu in the Eastern Cape province of South Africa. Today we are going to go on a brief journey together to explore the life and legacy of one of the most famous people in the world. We will look at Mandela's early life, at the time he spent in Johannesburg, which incidentally is my hometown. We will look at his years of imprisonment and finally his freedom. For Mandela, his early years were idyllic. Apart from his father's death at around the age of 9, he had a stable childhood. It was the man who his father had worked for, Chief Jongintabo Delanyebo, that took Mandela in and treated him as his own. And it was with the chief's actual son Jooste that Mandela formed a lifelong friendship with and found himself fleeing to an unfamiliar city with. We will talk about that in a moment. In the meantime, Mandela attended a prestigious university in the Transkei known as the Fort Hare University. And it was at this university that he met another lifelong friend and ally in Oliver Tambo. Tambo and Mandela were expelled from Fort Hare University for organizing a student protest. And it was this fact and the fact that the chief had organized an arranged marriage for Mandela and for his son Jooste that saw those two boys fleeing to this unfamiliar city, to Johannesburg. It was in Johannesburg that Mandela's political journey really began. He mulls over this fact in his autobiography where he states that to be an African in South Africa means that one is politicized from birth, whether one acknowledges it or not. In Johannesburg, he also met a prominent businessman and member of the ANC, the African National Congress, called Walter Sisulu. Sisulu really took Mandela under his wing and under his tutelage and encouraged him to form the ANC Youth League too. Mandela's political journey really took a more active step in the year of 1948. It was this year that the governing party, the National Party, under the leadership of the newly elected President D.F. Malan, initiated apartheid. Apartheid is an Afrikaans term, Afrikaans being the language spoken by many white South Africans. That means apartness or separateness, not unlike segregation in the American South. It was under apartheid that new laws were declared. Black and white Africans had to live separately, they had to communicate minimally, and they had to use separate facilities. This was the South Africa that I grew up in. It was the oppression of apartheid that led Mandela to forming the Defiance Campaign in 1952. On the first day alone of this campaign, 250 people were arrested. Mandela states in his autobiography that going to prison became a badge of honor among Africans. It was in the same decade that Mandela met the woman who supported him throughout his imprisonment years, a social worker called Winnie Madikizela. So to recap, Mandela's early life in the Transkei was idyllic. It was really in Johannesburg that he became more politicized, and he took a more active step to the campaign to free Africans in South Africa. It was also in Johannesburg that Mandela became more militarized. What was the provocation? There was an incident in a town called Sharpsville, where unarmed student protesters protested in front of a police station. The police officers opened fire on these unarmed protesters and killed 69 of them. It was after this incident that the ANC, at least the government, banned the ANC and Mandela went underground. At this point, Mandela and his colleagues organized Umkhonto weSizwe, the Spear of the Nation, in response to the government's heavy hand. In order to gain funding and support for Umkhonto we Sizwe, Mandela left South Africa and he traveled throughout Africa, all the way up to England to try and gain support for their cause. On his return in the year of 1962, Mandela was arrested. Mandela found himself serving a 5-year sentence, but he would soon find out that that sentence would be much, much longer. It would turn out to be 27 long years of imprisonment, and 20 of those years were spent on the notorious Robben Island. Mandela talks about those years as being his dark years. He describes his cell as being not much bigger than the length of his body. But his long-awaited release occurred on the 11th of February, 1990. He and his wife, Winnie Mandela, held hands as they walked out of Victor Verster prison, exuding confidence and with Mandela wearing his trademark smile. So today we have taken a brief journey through Mandela's life. We have looked at his early idyllic years in the Transkei. We have looked at his time in Johannesburg where he became more politicized. We've looked briefly at his incarceration years he was being imprisoned for his beliefs, and finally sharing in his freedom. The country boy never really left Mandela, and in his autobiography he states that there's nothing that lifted his spirits quite as much as the blue skies, the open veldt, and the green grass.